So good day, everyone. I'm chatting today with Dr. Duncan MacFadyen, head of Oppenheimer Generations and Research, a platform that promotes innovative scientific research in the conservation sector, fostering engagement and dialogue. The OGRC, as it's commonly known, organized last week's Oppenheimer Conference in Joburg, and it attracted the participation of 350 leading African scholars and conservation practitioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat about the key outcomes of the conference, Duncan.
Thank you, Rio. Great to be here.
So, looking at the conference as a whole, what do you consider were the key take-home messages, and what would you say emerged as the most distinctive themes?
Thanks, Rio. The bottom line is it had a bit of a doom and gloom feel to it in many ways, that climate is changing drastically. There was a feeling that maybe to the point that we've passed the chance to make the difference, which of course is worrying. But there was also hope that came out of it, that if we do take certain precautions seriously and try and change our behavior, that we can reduce the increase. By a couple of degrees, we can actually reduce mass extinctions. And, certain species on the areas, like in the drier areas of South Africa or Africa, are already on the edge of their physiological thresholds. So these species may be lost in these areas, but if we reduce our carbon footprint, reduce global warming, these species may not be lost totally. The take-home messages from the conference, and we've been the 11th Oppenheimer conference, we've linked it quite closely to Opgen Research and Conservation Strategy, and that is looking at inclusive wildlife economies, actually developing inclusive wildlife economies across Africa. The theory that wildlife needs to pay if it's to survive, with massive increases in population growth of humans. The amount of land available, is shrinking. The amount of wilderness that's left out there is minimal. And these areas need to contribute if they are to survive. Climate change, as I mentioned, a big one, a big cross-cutting kind of theme across different areas. The climate is reality, whether it be biodiversity loss, whether it be from an agricultural point of view, whether it be a social issues of people moving from areas where historically they could make a living to areas where they are finding themselves now and coming into conflict with other people there. These are all big issues that we need to face. So climate change, wildlife economies, understanding landscape and development, almost finding pathways for development that are nature supporting rather than nature eroding. And these will all make a big difference at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's, yeah, and I'm really glad that there is hope that we can have a better future than the trajectory that it's predicted to be as we're on at the moment. Secondly, out of all the presentations, which one in particular stood out to you and why?
That's such a good question, and such a difficult question, in that there were so many good presentations. And I think, in many ways we can pat ourselves on the back, because it was so hard to choose the best presentation, because so many were topical and relevant. And, and I'm a scientist, but I'm opposed to science that doesn't matter, and that research that leads to nothing. So many of the top presentations were presentations that will really change the way we look at things and how we hopefully deal with things going forward. One of the top presentations was by Professor Colleen Downs, and she looked at how urbanization and how certain species had adapted to living in urban environments. And why I think that's so important is because urban areas are going to become more and more important for conservation. because as you see, I mean, in our limited life frames times, I mean, you see how cities are bursting and growing. So unless we look at cities differently and we create green areas, create corridors to protected areas and conservation areas through cities, and her presentation looked at how different species had adapted to living in urban areas, and how over time how their numbers had grown and how they had adapted. And I think there's so much relevance for Africa in terms of the importance of cities in conservation and the importance of green cities in being lungs to maintain biodiversity and prevent biodiversity loss. And certain species, like the crowned eagle she spoke about, how vervet monkeys, how, chameleons, how various animals are adapting to certain cities. And I think there's a vital message in that for us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. Urban areas are increasing massively. And just finally, so the conference did feature a wide range of young researchers who are coming to the fore in their relevant fields of scientific conservation related research. As the organizer of the conference, who would you rate as one of the best and most dynamic young presenters, and what was the topic that they presented on?
Again, we were blessed in many ways to have great numbers of youngsters and young students, up and coming emerging African scientists, which is so encouraging to see. Mto Moyo, he's Zimbabwean, but studying through WITS and the Global Change Institute. He looked at kind of seasonality and rainfall seasonality and how that drove biodiversity in vegetation, and the various kind of factors, environmental factors that drive biodiversity in the Miombo woodlands. And I thought he was dynamic. He spoke well, good statistics, which again, I mean, backs up a lot. It's not everything, but backs up a lot. And he was, I mean, a young PhD student, but shot the lights out. And I think his relevance, specifically looking at rainfall seasonality as a driver in the Miombo woodlands, what was exciting for me is that it was the application of what he did could be an application in the Cape Fynbos, it could be in the Sahara Desert. It was really, really insightful and well delivered, and he was by far, I think, one of the best students, but there were many. And another, which I won't take too much time, was who needs a mention, was Marilyn Nkomo, who looked at the Achilles heel of conservation and looking at, and it was a difficult subject, but looking at kind of transformation in the sciences. And I mean, I've seen it, and I like to think I'm not an old white male, but I'm a white male. But science historically, and especially natural sciences, has been dominated by white old males. And it's not just a black-white thing, it's a male sex thing, a male-female thing. And we're trying very hard from our side, and that's why the program you'll see and the delegates are so diverse, because it has to be, we need to break that boundary. And she spoke beautifully of the challenges that she's had as a Zimbabwean, a black female, coming into a white dominated world. And what was great about that is she didn't blatter anybody. It was actually, come and speak to me. Let's open the dialogue. And so it was presented and delivered so beautifully, which I found was great. And it's a difficult conversation, but it's a conversation that we wanted to create a platform for her. And it's a conversation that needs to be had.
100%. She is absolutely phenomenal, and yeah, it's so important. And your conference was incredibly diverse, and it was wonderful and really encouraging to see. And I think it just makes it so much more. Representation matters at the end of the day. It really, really does. And it's so wonderful to see
So
that
true.
coming through. So thank you so
Oh,
much for your
wonderful.
time today. I really, really appreciate it. It was really insightful. Yeah,
Anytime.
cool.
And
Thank you.
I do hope the dates for the 12th Oppenheimer Conference are the 4th to the 6th of October 2023.
Okay.
I mean, put in your diary, it'd be lovely to have you there. And I've been following quite a lot of your writings, and I think you write beautifully, and through Robert and Jive Media, and it would be very valuable to have you actually attend the event yourself.
I would really love to. Thank you. Thank you so much, Duncan.
Thanks, Rio.
Okay,
Have a lovely day.
bye. Yeah, you too.
Well, bye.